Well, welcome everybody, and we've got a speaker tonight, and David will introduce the mystery guest, and we can get started. We've got a lot to talk about today.
So tonight's mystery guest is, actually someone who, if you've been to any of these meetings before, and I think pretty much everybody has been, he is a presenter who really needs no introduction. But I would like to introduce him anyway because he has been such an important part of this organization for some decades, president of it, and has actually been the guy who keeps this all running and rolling and doing all this excellent stuff. And we have so many great presenters so often, I mean, every month. And last month it came up that Don Hood, had never actually, or not in recent history, actually presented to this group. And that we were missing a great bet to not have his expertise shared with the rest of us. And so tonight we would like to welcome our president and our very good friend and very smart and very expert hypnotherapist and past life regression and spirit releasement dude to come and speak with us. So Don, take it away.
Thank you, David. That was wonderful. Usually it's the shortest one I ever had was from my older brother. He said, "Here's Don," and the longest one was when I had to do it myself. That's why I asked you to introduce me. But the subject tonight is this spirit releasement stuff. It's stuff that I've been doing for over 30 years now, pretty much since the beginning of my career of doing hypnosis. To go back to the beginning of it, of my experience with it, I was, before taking the coursework for hypnosis, I was asking this fellow on the West Coast everything I could think of about the field and everything about hypnosis I could think of. So, yeah, if everybody mutes their mics for now, that would be handy. That would pick up, we would cut out a lot of the extra noise, but we want to have the mics open later for questions, because we'll hopefully do a lot of questions later. But the thing I wanted to say is that this fellow, at the end of my talking to him, 3 hours, he was talking about spirit releasement and how they brought this lady in, 4 guys carried this lady in, laid her on the floor, and he did the work, and the spirits went up into the light, and she got up and walked away. And I thought, okay, I'm nodding and smiling and thinking this is a little wacky for me. I'm not gonna get into this stuff. Well, when the universe really wants you to do something, the universe keeps nudging you over to where you're supposed to go, what your path is supposed to be. So after my initial training, I got involved with Dr. Irene Hickman with some workshops that she did. She was one of the leaders in all of this. And I got my training, and then this was my first case. There was a woman in her 20s who started smoking the year before, just kind of all of a sudden. And I started the 3-session process that I was, trained to do. Between the first session and the second session, I had taken my first workshop with Irene Hickman. She came back and I asked, "So, how you doing?" And she said, "Well, I was fine, and all of a sudden I had a lit cigarette in my hand." This was a red flag for me, because in the training, sometimes people, they don't black out and crash into things. They just aren't wholly there. It's a disassociation thing. And this other person will light the cigarette. Well, I explained this new stuff I learned, and she said, "Sure, I'll give it a try." And so we did. And there was a 19-year-old smoker in her who made her start smoking. So she was hanging out at a bar, and that's where the guy jumped in. So that was my first case. And after that one session of the releasing the guy, she never had anything to do with cigarettes anymore. She had no use for tobacco. So from there, we jump ahead. I got more involved in all of this, and I ended up being president of an international group that we had that was called Depossession Institute. And then that became Lightworkers Alliance, and then it kind of faded away. It was a mess. But the point being, for moving from it's really wacky to where I am today, where it's some of the most fulfilling work I've ever done. Now, let me mention Dr. Irene Hickman, Dr. William Baldwin. He's another one that's kind of a father of this work. Dr. Edith Fiore and Dr. Shakuntala Modi. All of them got into this work because their clients opened up to this situation where there was an entity involved. Somebody else was speaking through them, not them. And which is interesting that none of them, well, it's sort of like Brian Weiss. You people probably, anyone who does past life regression knows Brian Weiss. And Brian Weiss, he still is a psychiatrist who was working with a client who fell into a past life regression, and he didn't want anything to do with it because, you know, that it was going to wreck his reputation. But he was told that he had to write a book about it, and Many Lives, Many Masters came of that one. So sometimes, as hypnotherapists, we run into situations that don't fit into the box of regular clinical hypnotherapy that most of us originally were taught. This is why, Dr. Irene Hickman said that to be a complete hypnotherapist, you need to know these two things, the past life regression and the depossession work, she called it. And that's, I believe that too, at least that we all should know how to do it. Whether we actually do it or not, that's neither here nor there. If somebody all of a sudden is speaking in a guttural tone to you, as you know, in a session, you want to be able to handle that responsibly, and either really handle it and do it, or refer it out to me or somebody else who really does this work. So it's another tool in your toolbox to help your client. So that's pretty much it. It's not everybody is interested in doing this work. I understand that, but if you're, sometimes you don't have a choice. Your client will say, okay, we're going to do this now. Let me share the screen a little bit here. If this all works, here we go. In Dr. Let's go up here first. Dr. Fiore's patients, she figured that 75% of her clients had some kind of attachment. Dr. Modi's patients is a psychiatrist on the East Coast. She had it broken down more specifically. 92% were just earthbound spirits, 82% more than one, 50 spirits of their relatives, 77% strangers, abortion fetuses, miscarried babies, and then 77% had some form of demonic attachment. Let me say something about aborted fetuses and past life regression. This is kind of an interesting thing. My wife, who did massage therapy, had a client in Naperville who's had two boys, and the younger boy could speak sentences. I don't know exactly how old he was, but he was little. And just out of the blue, he said to his mom, "Remember when I was supposed to be the older kid?" And mom, you know, nobody knew that she had an abortion. It wasn't from this husband, it was before she got married. She got pregnant, and then she had an abortion, and then got married, and then the first kid came, and the second kid came and said, I was supposed to be number one. So it's interesting when we start looking at the big picture of all of this. It's a little crazy, but it is it's all there for us. Let's see. Let me do this. This is important to see. The primary reason for lost souls is the feeling of unworthiness. This is the thing that is so sad to begin with when we do this work, because so many of the lost souls are wandering around because they don't feel they're good enough to go to the light, so they end up just being lost. And there's a variety of reasons why they don't go to the light, but a big majority of them are because they don't feel they're good enough to go to the light. So that's something that we need to do as therapists, is to help them understand that everybody gets to go home. There's some religions say you have to be a certain way, one way or another, but everybody's forgiven. Everybody gets to go home. Everybody is loved more than anything. The dark side, they come to us to create chaos, and they do it to keep us off the track of love. So these are the things to keep in mind here. We'll come back out of here though. But one other thing I want to mention about those two doctors who looked at their clients and figured all these percentages. Statistically, they were probably leaning towards the attachments because that's why they came, or they came because they had some issues. So the statistics may not be for the overall population that extreme. Okay, does that make sense? The normal progression in this in this genre, let's say this protocol, is when we die, we should go to the light. You know, we die, we lose this body, we go to the light, we're hanging over there, we come back into a new body, and that fits in with the past life regression work, because we, you know, go into different bodies for many lifetimes. But sometimes there's a glitch that keeps us from going into, you know, that other life, going through that pattern of into the other lifetime. Sometimes it's that unworthiness is a big one. Sometimes we don't know that we're dead yet. Sometimes we feel that there's stuff that I didn't finish yet. I need to finish some things. I need to tell her that I love her. I need to get back at that so-and-so. That's when you get back at that so-and-so, that's where the dark side might come along and say, hey, come on over here. There was a fella who was a very strong dark one in somebody once, and it ended up that he was a street kid, but he was bullied and beaten up a lot, and because he was small, and he got killed in the street. He got run over by a cart or something. The dark side came along and said, hey, you want to get back at those guys? What 10-year-old kid wouldn't want to get back at the guys, right? So he joined the dark side. So they'll snatch these people up too. What else? Other reasons. Another reason is like car accidents. There's all kinds of emergency vehicles, all these lights and stuff going on, the commotion. They don't know where to go. They don't see the white light to get there. So there's when you start working in this stuff, you find there's a lot of reasons for things that do happen. Let's do this. Share one more for. We'll close this guy out, and we'll go to this one. Nope, not film. Sorry. Well, films. We'll do this real quickly here. Films about attachment and past life. There's some of these you'll recognize maybe as I scroll down here. The Prophecy series is one. Fallen, we'll talk about that in a moment. Ghost is a little more lighthearted, but it has a pretty good representation of what happens, you know, with the dark side and the light. Hearts and Souls is just a fun one. The Entity, that's kind of an interesting one. That person that this is about is a person who was attached and attacked physically. The entity showed up with a 3D presence. And actually, my wife and I worked on this person after we saw the film. The Exorcist, most everybody knows The Exorcist. The thing about The Exorcist, what's interesting is, if anybody's read or learned about the rite of exorcism, you'll see that it's a violent, fear-based ritual. That's what it is. What it is, it doesn't do much more than take the nails out of the tire and throwing them back up on the road again, because they don't believe that that they're anything but demons, and that the demons can't go anywhere but just cast out into the darkness. Well, if you've seen The Exorcist, in fact, there was a hypnotist who was trying to work with her, and if that guy had taken my class, then he would have helped her out. But he couldn't figure it out, so he left, and then they brought in the priest. The priest very nobly accepted the demon into his body. And then what did he do? He jumped out the window. What's the demon going to do? Leave that body and go to another one. So that comes back to Fallen up here. Draw. Okay. Fallen, the one up on the top here, that movie is a good example. Denzel Washington and John Goodman is in it. Denzel Washington is a detective, and he's putting together that there's something more than just this serial killer that they just executed, because the serial killer's MO is exactly the same as this new killer. But what happens is that in the film, that there's a scene in particular where the dark one jumps from a person to another person to another person, and the person's personality shifts in the scene. It's very illustrative of what really goes on. So that's why those are good. There's some of these are fun, some of these are very serious. We have to remember when we see these things that most of it is Hollywood, you know, plain and simple, and that's okay, because what it does, it kind of helps us open the door to this kind of work. But we have to remember that it is Hollywood. Now, how do we get? Here we go again. How do we get